for Monday, April 17th, 2023. Before we do the approval of the agenda, we have some previous council members here and the previous mayor. So this time I'd like to acknowledge our previous council and our previous mayor. I'm going to do the 4 years first and then I have a little bit more to say about a council member that had spent 8 years on council. So I want to take this opportunity to thank Councillor Majinski and Councillor Lehman for the 4 years served for the district of Tumbler Ridge. So I thank you on behalf of this council, our residents of Tumbler Ridge, and our district staff. It takes a lot to spend 4 years on council, and I think everybody learns that as you go through. So appreciate all the time that you spent on council and everything that we had go forward, mountain biking, the Geo-Interpretive Center, things like that. So I'm going to call all of you guys up. And to Mayor Bertrand, thank you very much for jumping in the seat. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to learn from you and to move forward as the mayor of Tumbler Ridge. So I'll call the three of you guys up. I'll give you guys your awards. Come on up, Mr. Bertrand. You're in the side of the picture. Don't get the other picture. Perfect. There. Okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1, smile. Awesome. Great, thank you again. Thank you.
Who's next?
Councillor Lehman. You okay, buddy? Yeah, take his hat off.
Put the hat back on first. You got a serious hat head there.
Yeah, I'd like to say it here. There we catch it, we go. All right, I'm going to call up previous Councillor Kirby.
Daryl, be nice.
Okay, I won't embarrass Councillor Kirby, but I want to thank you for everything. I mean, I spent 8 years with you on council. It was amazing. Wish you were still here.
Thank you, Daryl. Thank you. I'd like to thank staff and council for the acknowledgement. It was my honor to serve as part of this council for the 8 years that I was. And best of luck to this council, and maybe you'll see me in another election.
So again, thank you for all the councillors that could be president and the former mayor to be acknowledged and receive your district gifts. Approval of the agenda. Councillor Julik.
Can I ask that 9.4 be moved before 9.1?
Be moved to where, sorry?
Before 9.1. So 9.1 is the Monkman RV Park
Yep.
for operations, and then the park one is 9.4. And I just thought it makes sense to review the information about the parks before we approved the agreement.
Okay, so let's do that. Everything will just get moved down. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
change them all, but we'll just move 9.4 in front of 9.1. We'll need a recommendation to do that.
Okay, I recommend that we move 9.4 before 9.1 in the agenda, in the April 17th, 2023 regular council meeting agenda.
Okay, seconder. Councillor Norbury, discussion? Okay, call the question, all in favor? Carried. So we'll call it 9.0.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll take the approval of the agenda. Councillor Julik?
That the April 17th, 2023 regular council meeting agenda be adopted as amended.
Seconder. Councillor Hoffman, all in favor? Carried. Adoption of minutes, April 3rd, 2023, special meeting of council minutes. The recommendation. Councillor Julik.
There is a change on that one. Not the special meeting, sorry. So the recommendation that the April 3rd, 2023 special meeting of council minutes be adopted as presented.
Seconder. Councillor Dussault, sorry. All in favor? Carried. 3.2, April 3rd, 2023, regular council meeting minutes. Recommendation. Councillor Dussault.
That the April 3rd, 2023 regular council meeting minutes be adopted as presented.
Okay. Seconder. Councillor Norbury. Any errors or omissions? Councillor Julik.
On page 13, Councillor Clickash, I believe, was also opposed on that motion, not just myself.
Staff.
Thank you. If Councillor Julik could clarify which item she's referring to, please.
So 2023-18-12. It was the admin 52 policy.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so staff will look into that and grab it up.
We'll make the correction. Yes.
Okay. All in favor? Carried. Business arising from the minutes? Council? Staff? Okay. Delegations, Community Futures Piece of the Art, request from Sue Kenny, Executive Director, to appear before council to present the CFPL 2022 highlights and the 2023 programs and services. Please join us, Sue.
I think that presentation's pretty shiny up there.
We do have a paper copy.
Well, thank you for having me this evening, and I want to congratulate all of you on your new positions as council and mayor.
Thank you.
And it's quite the job. I did my council stint there for 6 years when it was 3-year terms, and it's not an easy seat to sit in. Congratulations that the people in Tumbler Ridge voted for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so, I've been doing, going around to all the communities and meeting with mayor and councils there to talk about community futures. Some know about us and some don't. And I thought with the new people in town that we could, oh, I always miss the mic. No. There, can you? Okay. All right.
Perfect.
So anyway, Community Futures, we've been around for over 30 years. And we started in the 1980s. And it was at a time when the economy had dropped in the 80s. Interest rates went up to 20% on your mortgages. And it was quite the time. I remember I only had a house, I was 3 years into my mortgage, and it went from 10% to 20. But anyway, and in that same time, businesses struggled. Banks wouldn't bank businesses or especially new businesses. And so the federal government at that time, they formed Community Futures as an organization to help businesses and help economic development in rural Canada. So our offices, there's 291 offices across Canada, starting on Vancouver Island all the way to Newfoundland. And we all, and it's all rural, so it's a great organization to work for when you live in rural Canada, and how strong and resilient we all are, and how creative we can be. And we're very fortunate that the federal government lets our organization react to our communities in a way that the communities need us to react, other than setting up KPIs. You got to do this, this, and that. And we're allowed to work with our communities, and we've had great results.
So we represent the whole Northeast, so there's 8 First Nations communities and 8 incorporated communities and several little unincorporated communities. And we try to respond to them all. Being in office in Dawson Creek, in the center of the Northeast, pretty much the center of the larger part of the population, it's difficult to get out to see everybody and know everything about every community. And so this presentation that I've been doing to mayor and councils these last few weeks is to let you know that we are here. We are here for our businesses in your community, for new entrepreneurship. We have a great board of directors that are either in business or a big part of business, and they give us guidance. And we've done some pretty big projects across the Northeast region, but I must say that the largest projects were right here in Tumbler Ridge, with the museum, with trails, with the Global Geopark. Community Futures was the first at the table finding funding for the tools to excavate the museum, and it was pretty exciting at the time because things were just so miserable with the mines closing down, and it was nice to have a little bit of good news. And that really, I think, made a difference for Tumbler Ridge. I know there's a lot of back and forth, should the geopark be here? Should the museum be here? Who's going to pay for it? I know all that. I've been part of it, but at least you have something. You have something to go back on. We're so industry tied to industry, and it's like a piece of yourself. You can have a bit of your own stuff that you can define in your community, and that's the kind of projects we like to get involved in. And we don't get involved in projects unless there's cheerleaders in the community, and there's a good board of directors or a good group of people that can carry it forward. All we can do is build capacity, help you out, and then let you go. And so we haven't done projects in Tumbler Ridge for a while. But keep us in mind if any ideas that you may have or things that are going on. We don't have money in our back pocket as far to do it, but we do have a lot of resources for grants, and that we can help you search for. So we also have our business tools and resources. So we do business loans up to $150,000 we can do out of our office, but we can syndicate with other community futures, and we can lend up $500,000, $1 million, and it's those projects or businesses that the banks won't have anything to do with you, but we can take that little bit of risk, and the decisions are made locally, and so they understand more and are more likely to support. We have a new program, Taking Care of Business. We've had quite a bit of uptake from Tumbler Ridge. And Taking Care of Business, it's a series, it's a membership. You go on to the Taking Care of Business website, and it's a free membership. And when you go into that, become a member, then there's lots of webinars, business webinars to help you when you're in business or if you want to start up a business. And they're all free. And all you have to do is sign up on the membership. And then on top of that, we've received $5.5 million from the federal government and the provincial government for helping businesses that have been affected by closures of mines or flood or fire or just, around us. And so we were eligible for this funding, for part of this funding. It's not just Community Futures getting $5.5 million. It's across the board. Right now, there's 14 Community Futures offices in British Columbia that are taking advantage of this. So we have full-time staff delivering this program, and it's it's quite amazing, the training that you can get. There's no limits to the training. There's no limits to the type of business that you have. So if you have a restaurant and you need a qualified bartender to that you want for your restaurant, you could send this person for training to be a bartender. You can send your cooks for training to cook Italian food, become chefs. The sky's the limit. We have, in Haida Gwaii, we had 4 businesses grouped together, and they are getting Class 1 training for truck driving. And then there's another one for heavy equipment, and the companies don't have to pay. This training is covered by this Taking Care of Business, by this DREE program. So if you know people, you know businesses in town, it's there for absolutely everybody. And you just go on our website and look at Taking Care of Business. And Fran Hoyen is our girl that you'll see her on the website, and she'll come into town and she'll go on the computer with you and walk you through it. But it's like anything. It's like estheticians. If you're a hairdresser and you need to learn a new product or whatever, they'll send you to Vancouver. They'll pay for your travel and your training up to $5,000. So that's the important one that I really wanted to drive home today. And we have a contract until July 2024. And then there's the Export Navigator program. And so that's a program to assist businesses in thinking about selling their products outside of your town, outside of your province. And we also have Russ Bierling, our export advisor, that will be coming into the communities. He has been in the communities over the last couple of months talking to businesses and with the Export Navigator, they have, it's funded by the province BC, and they have all the ins for trade commissioners, how to develop a product, how to, for a product to even be moved to Alberta. We encourage, like when you want to get into the export business, don't think it has to go to England or a different country or off the continent. It can be right here. And we've had great success. It can be just getting product into a grocery store. And we've had a couple of producers that their products are now in the grocery stores up in Fort St. John. And so in the package, I highlighted a couple of businesses. I'm not going to read them to you. But I jumped right through our numbers for our loans program. These pages aren't numbered, but it looks like this. And just to show you what we've done over 5 years. And so over 5 years, business training sessions and participants, we've had over 1,100 business training sessions with participants. Business advisory services over the last 5 years, 3,193. Value of our loans over the last 5 years is $8,311,000. And I like to say, I started working for Community Futures in 2001. And we had $1 million in the bank account. And we had to write off like $2 million in loans. It was brutal. But anyway, we got our act together, and we're very, very strong today. Number of loans, we've lent 680 loans in the last 5 years. And projects, we've delivered over 108 projects. And when you look at the numbers, business training, what we were required to do was 500, but we did 1,000. Advisory service, what were we required to do? 1,500, we did 3,000. Value of loans, what we're required? 2 million, and we did 8 million. And so we're pretty proud of that. And we have a great team, and most of us my 3 staff, they've been there for 8 years. And so they're very cohesive and they're very knowledgeable. And then I'm just highlighting some partnerships that we'd with First Nations, and we've got the Geopark in there, and then shop local initiatives. We assisted your Chamber of Commerce, provided funds to do a shop local campaign in Tumbler Ridge, and we provided the same amount of money to the other chambers of commerce, and then we partnered with them so that we could reach as many businesses as possible. I'm not going to read this out to you, but there's a lot of good things happening, and we're excited about the new year and the new programs that have come out.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for coming in and updating council on what Community Futures is doing and how you've supported Tumbler Ridge, Sue. So I really appreciate your time coming in tonight. Does council have any questions? Councilor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Krakelka. Thank you for coming in, Sue. I know multiple people who have utilized Community Futures, and they have nothing but positive things to say. I only had one question, and it was in regards to your taking care of business. What's the membership cost like, and what's the term?
The membership is free. No, the membership is free.
Wow.
You
And you get $5,000.
Hey?
You get $5,000 for training.
Yeah, if you have
and-
training, like if you've been in business, I can see, I think it's 6 months, something like that, to a year. And, yeah, up to 5,000.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's either 5,000 for the training or a total of 5,000 when you're traveling and training.
Thank you. I just wanted to
Yeah.
clarify that because it sounds like a great initiative and that everyone should be trying to take advantage of to move their business along to that next level. And I just wanted to
Yeah.
get that out there. So thank you.
No, thank you. Yeah. And bookkeeping's another one for businesses that they're taking a lot of. So, yeah, it's incredible. If you have any questions about it, you can give me a call and learn more about it. Eh?
Councilor Julik.
Hey, I just wanted to say thanks again. I've been really lucky to work with you and your staff, and yes, you've been in Tumbler Ridge lots and helping everybody out. We had the lunch and learns. We had a lot of stuff going on, and yeah, it's been super helpful. I know of a few businesses that happened simply because you reaching out to them and getting them started and stuff. So I just wanted to thank you for coming in and bringing it to everybody's attention that you're still out there, and there's some really cool stuff you can do. The taking care of business, yes, it's great. I haven't looked a whole lot in it as a business owner, but I just like getting the emails. Like once you're on the radar, then I get included in all that stuff. So it's pretty great. So.
Yeah, that's right too. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can sign up for our newsletters, and we're on Facebook, and we're very live on Facebook. So anything you need to know, if you go on our Facebook, all the current programs are there. And
So thanks for making the drive. It's good seeing you again, Sue.
Oh, there's a nice drive. Eh?
All right, 6.2. Councilor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Krakelka. I need to recuse myself as I work at the library and have a monetary interest. You can send Curtis to let me in.
Okay. Tumbler Ridge Public Library, Zachary Schoenberg and Trent Ernest and Paula Coutts. It was a request by council to have you come in as a delegation, so welcome.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for having us here and welcoming us. There is a slideshow that you'll see. It's just images from the library on repeat, and there's a handout as well documenting some of the numbers for the year in comparison to the year previous. My name is Zach Schoenberger, and I'm a library trustee here tonight with the board chair, Trent Ernst, and our head librarian, Paula Coutts, to present and discuss the library board's approved budget for 2023. First of all, we'd like to thank the council for passing the motion at your March 27th meeting, approving the library's budget of $406,000 and $268. This figure represents a bare bones budget for the continued operation of the library, allowing to maintain existing staff and services with no further improvements. Councillors have likely noticed the budget contains an increase over last year's funding. Therefore, some explanation is required, specifically highlighting the past 2 years of budget cuts imposed on the library and the rising costs of materials and services. Last year's board-approved budget was approximately $377,000. In response, District Council only approved $360,000. This was a repeat of Council's decision in 2021, where the board approved approximately $389,000, and Council instead requested the board to resubmit a lower figure. The board worked to further reduce the approved budget, presenting $360,000. In the end, Council approved only $340,000, an arbitrary number that failed to address the library's actual funding needs. This 8% cut was sustainable during the peak of the pandemic, when the library's doors were closed to the public through part of the year. However, with the library's reopening and its anemic budget in 2022, even at reduced hours, it was well below its funding needs. And when we say it's a bare bones budget, we say that with emphasis. During the first 5 years as head librarian, Paula took the initiative to work with the library board to streamline the library's budget. An emphasis was placed on staff and services to better serve our community. For example, she took a look at contracted services to significantly reduce contracting services for computer support. She trimmed excess costs to determine a more responsible budget. Meanwhile, however, over the past 2 years in particular, costs of materials, services, and wages have skyrocketed, leaving the library at risk of closing its doors altogether if it cannot receive adequate, stable funding. In 2022 and 2023, government-mandated regulations increased the library's costs, including 5 mandatory paid sick days for each employee, 45 cents per hour increase to minimum wage, increased employer premiums for CPP and EI, and increased WorkSafe BC premiums. In addition to this, inflation hit a record-breaking 6.8%. The BC government is also increasing the minimum wage this year and in years to follow. These increases, combined with the reduction in the DTR grant, resulted in library staff not receiving their COLA, cost of living allowance increases in 2022. This brings us to the present budget, which represents an effort to keep up with rising costs, although it does not address the library's ultimate needs and goals. The board therefore has also approved an addendum to the budget for an additional $5,800. This small sum would restore the library to pre-COVID service levels by extending weekday hours from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. and opening its doors on Sundays. The board recognizes that traffic in the library is up, as you see in the handout, since the pandemic, and that it is time for the library to return to normal operations. The total amended amount is $412,248. By adding 12 additional hours to its week, the library provides shift workers with better opportunities to use the library services, and families with a place to bring their children to play and learn while siblings are attending activities at the arena or the swimming pool. Returning to pre-pandemic services at the library seems like a necessary step to restoring life back to normal in Tumbler Ridge, and $5,800 seems like a small sum to achieve this. The truth is, however, that the library dreams of much more than simply surviving, and the board believes that the District of Tumbler Ridge and the many new families here would benefit tremendously with better support and services that would follow. For example, the library wants to keep and attract staff by paying wages that are comparable to entry-level administrative positions elsewhere in town. The highly demanding work of library staff and the technical training required of them is compensated with one of the lowest rates in the district, often around 25% less than the lowest paid jobs in Tumbler Ridge. As a result, library employees are currently paying 50% of their tuition to As a further example, library employees are currently paying 50% of their tuition to complete library technician diplomas. This kind of training is a fundamental necessity for library employees, and yet they are required to carry half the financial burden on top of their low wages. The library should be funded with enough capacity to adequately train its own staff and to pay a competitive wage. From the board's perspective, this is, frankly speaking, an egregious injustice. It also places the library at risk of being critically unsustainable, as staff may be forced to find better paying jobs elsewhere or have additional jobs that limit their availability and thus limit the library's ability to cover for illnesses. The library would also like to offer better programs. For example, implementing the Dolly Parton Imagination Library would cover costs of delivering free new books to families in Tumbler Ridge, which would support the library's mandate to provide literacy activities at home. Also, the VR Trail Project, which would film TR trails using VR cameras, would help showcase and promote the natural beauty of Tumbler Ridge. Please, if council is interested in seeing library staff better compensated and to see these exciting services coming to Tumbler Ridge, please ask the head librarian for more information and consider increasing the funding allotment for the library at your discretion. To conclude, the board has approved a minimal budget that keeps the doors to the library open and provides no opportunities for the library's growth or improvement. Although the requested amount is substantially higher than last year's budget, this increase must be seen in light of major cuts to the library's funding over the past 2 budgets and the massive increases in the costs of materials and services. The board has provided an addendum to the budget of $5,800 that would allow the library to extend its hours back to pre-pandemic levels, thus better meeting the needs of families and shift workers. Finally, if the district is interested in seeing the library thrive and grow, to keep up with rising costs, to offer more services to its patrons, and to provide adequate wages to its hardworking, passionate employees, it should request the library board to provide an updated budget that reflects these goals. As stated by the District of Tumbler Ridge in 2012, the main reason the library became a municipal service is to provide a greater degree of funding support for the library operation. That's in quotations. The library board requests the district council meet its obligations to provide sustainable funding to the library by returning to and even increasing funding above its pre-pandemic levels. Thank you for your time.
All right, well, thank you very much for coming on the request of council. Before I open up the questions, I have one, and you make note of it in your comments in regards to wages and stuff, and that you're trying to base it off, I'm assuming off the district's wages when it comes to admin stuff. Is the board ever interested in the concept of the library becoming a district positions? Would you know how the board would feel on that?
It's something that we've talked about. There's not been any sort of direction one way or another. It's just sort of at best been sort of a preliminary conversation.
Okay. And the only reason I asked that, like maybe that conversation needs to be looked at with the board. If the board as a whole thinks it's a good idea to have them as employees of the district and not through the board, it might be an opportunity to talk.
I believe, though, the Provincial Library Act prevents us from doing something like that.
The last time I investigated benefits or anything through the district, I was told that because the library's separately constituted with its own board, it would not be allowed. But I've seen it done in other places, and it would be wonderful to investigate.
Yeah, and I think it needs to be investigated. I'm not saying that the board could stay in place if it went through, because I have looked it up somewhat, and the board might not be, it might not be ran by a board, it actually might be ran by the municipality. That's what I'm asking the board, what they use it, that they're talking about the wages and making sure your staff's paid, equivalent to whoever you're using. And I apologize, I used the district, I seen the head librarian there, she was saying, no, they use something else as the border, but there is maybe that conversation we need to have to see if it's worth, depends what council feels like and stuff like that, and get the information back from staff. But to make them district employees where they would have those, the training opportunities through the district and stuff like that to up their education and stuff that you've mentioned. So that would be my only question. Questions from council? All right, no questions. Thank you guys very much for coming in. Enjoy your night.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having us.
Welcome back. Thank you. Okay, consent agenda, 7.1, recommendation, please. Councilor Norbury.
That council receives the consent agenda for April 17th. Be moved for information.
Seconder. Councilor Dussault. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Are there any items that need to be brought forward for discussion by council? Councilor Norbury.
7.2, Tumbler Ridge Mental Wellness Group.
Yep. Seconder. Councilor Noxana. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councilor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kakaka. So we have a letter that was, sent to me, and I forwarded along to everyone to make everyone aware of this great organization that's starting up again. I've worked with Mrs. Oetheimer or Mrs. O and Cristal Bertrand in the past, and this is something that they're very passionate about and in trying to help people with their mental wellness. And I just wanted to make sure it's brought up and let everyone know that they're going to be meeting twice a month. And outstanding initiative by some locals that want to help.
Fully agree. Councilor Jilek.
I just wondered if we could, one of the things in their letter was that they're looking for support with community and provincial resources as well as feedback about community needs. So I'm just wondering if we could reach out to them and ask if they have something specific that they would like from us as council. And yeah. I guess if they haven't asked, maybe that's a sign, but I believe mental wellness is a pretty big deal, and I was happy to see that this group was founded, and so I would just like to get some more information. If we could reach out, if not, I could do that on my own as well.
We could put a motion on the floor to have staff reach out and get in contact with both individuals to see if there's something that the council can do. Councilor Jilek.
Okay, I'd like to move that we get staff to reach out to the Tumbler Ridge Mental Wellness Group and ask if there's something specific we could help with.
Seconder. Councilor Noxana. Discussion. All in favor? Carried. Councilor Noxana.
My comment was just that they are meeting on a Monday night, and it seemed like they are interested in having a council member attend. So is there any way we could also maybe reach out, and maybe it would be the same as Councillor Julik's request, but just seeing if there's an alternate night they're thinking of meeting, if we needed to adjust, but also agree this is a great initiative taken on by some community members.
Yeah, I agree, and I think when staff reaches out, get all the details back and see where we can go from there to the system. No, thank you. Okay, any more discussion? Okay, request for information on contracted service parks. Report dated April 17th, 2023 from the Director of Operations and Infrastructure regarding requested information on contracted services parks. Recommendation. Councillor Jilek.
That council receives this report for discussion.
Seconder. Councillor Noxana. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Jilek.
Thank you, Mayor Kakauka. I looked it up because I was thinking when we talked about this, it wasn't like when I go back and look at my notes, I have circled contracted services for parks, but I also thought we were curious, or I know I was curious as to what the parks were like we were talking about, what did the parks include, like that line item. From what I can tell from this, it's only the Lions Monkman RV Park and then park irrigation, but I would like to know like what park irrigation, and then the toboggan run and the skate park and trails are all miscellaneous functions that has historically required some type of contracted service. There's just a typo there, but I'm just curious if that's all that's included in this $232,000, $783.
Okay, and your specific question, because you had multiple.
Sorry, okay. I am curious is it only these 4 things? And when we see other, park irrigation is one of the things, okay, how many parks does this include? Just Lions and Monkman RV Park?
Ms. Dorval.
Thank you. I will defer to Mr. Bradley.
No, this is, sorry, Mayor and Council, this does not just include the 2 RV parks. This includes all of our parks within the district.
All the playgrounds?
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about.
School fields, so on.
All right, that is good. And then on the Monkman RV Park, so when you look at the second page, it says the 2022 budget was $80,000 for Monkman RV. Actual was $62,901, and the 2023 budget is $70,000. So the $80,000, does this include DTR's costs over and above DTR Day's contract?
Ms. Dorval.
Thank you. Mr. Bradley, are you able to answer that?
I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure on that question.
Do you need clarity on the question, or?
Can you clarify?
Ms. McKay?
Okay, so, let me just go back to my notes here. So when we ask for the dollar amount on the Monkman RV Park, sorry, I gotta get at the beginning of this. Okay. I know there's a dollar amount in here. Okay, so percentage paid to the operator equaled $56,897. They took in $71,000 in revenue. So on this contracted services, it shows $70,000. So that's only the contracted services. That is not any power costs or anything like that. Where do those costs show up in our budget? I'm guessing they don't.
Ms. Dorval.
Thank you. Ms. McKay?
Evening, Mayor, Council.
Sam, sorry, I had to shut off the mic.
The, under Monkman, or under this parks line item, contracted services is the operator's percentage of the revenues, and then contracted services for, I know we repaired some of the door locks at the shower house. If we had to repair and do any other maintenance, then those contracted services comes out of that line item. There are other line items that show your utilities for your hydro and those expenses.
Thank you. Follow-up, Councillor Julik.
No, that pretty much answers my questions, I think. Thank you.
Any more discussion from council? Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. As far as I recall, there was something major being done with the water, that either a line needed repairing or something to that effect in the Monkman RV Park. Is that as part of this budget, or is that a separate line item?
Thought that was under Public Works, but Ms. Torval?
Thank you. Mr. Bradley, if you could answer that, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yeah, that's under the capital projects for this year.
Thank you.
Okay, any more discussion? Okay. Move on to 9.1, Monkman RV Park 2023 operations. Report dated April 17th, 2023, from Facilities Manager regarding Monkman RV Park 2023 operations. Recommendation, please. Councillor Norbury.
The council directs administration to enter into park service agreement for the Monkman RV Park with Tumbler Ridge Day Society for the 2023 operating season, May 1st to September 30th, and that council approves the Tumbler Ridge Day Society Parks Services Agreement as presented.
Seconder. Councillor Dussault. Discussion. Councillor Julik.
I just wanted to point out, I feel like a nitpicker. I'm still going to nitpick, I guess. On page 32 of the package, T says the wash house shall not be used for any other proposed. I know that that should read purpose. I never know how important that stuff is in leases and stuff like that. So, yeah, I'm happy TR Days put forward another request.
Councillor Dussault.
Yes, in regards to the lease, oh, wait a minute. for RV. On page 27, it says no adult shall remain at all times. And then on page 32, or page 30, it says there should be an adult 24 hours as a live-in host. So which would that be?
Ms. Torval?
Thank you. Ms. McKay?
Page 27, you're referring to the no adult attendant is expected to be at the bunk at all times?
Just hang on a second, get your mic on, I gotta shut one off. Go ahead.
Yes, on page 27, it says no adults should remain at all times. And then page 30 says there should be adult 24-hour live-in host at all time.
Yes. I can review the wording on that, but it is our desire to have somebody present on site at all times, but of course, it's not always realistic, so as long as they have either an alternative operator present, or they have a means of the patrons being able to contact them at any time, which is in place with the cell phone that they have, is what we have expected. But I can clean up that language with the no operator at all, no adult attendant is expected at all times.
Councilor Dussault?
And the other thing I wanted to know, which is this may already be, but everybody that it would be the adults overseeing would also have their first aid?
Ms. Torval?
Thank you. Ms. McKay?
Yes, the operators and their alternates do have their first aid.
Councilor Hoffman?
Thank you. Just for clarification, is the park available year-round with just a primary camping season, or is it shut down for part of the year?
Ms. Torval?
Thank you. Ms. McKay?
Hang on one second, sorry.
So typically, we close at the end of the season, but in the past, if there's a tenant in there, then we will leave them in there until they're done, and when they vacate, we lock up the gates and we're closed for the season. However, the last couple of years, there was a tenant that was in there long-term, and they stayed out throughout the entire winter. So the operations gets reverted back to the district as far as collecting fees and that sort of thing. We do minor snow clearing, and the tenants are made aware that they're not priority in there, and that there will be just one sweep for the road for them to access in and out. But ideally, we do prefer to close the park at the end of the season.
Thank you. So just a reminder to council, when we're done speaking, I'm going to shut off our mics, because we can only have 3 mics running out of time, so it takes me a bit to get staff's mics up. Just for clarity on what Councillor Hoffman asked, and I think it's a great question, and it's probably under fees and charges. To me, that when we have somebody stay past the operating season that's set, whether it's end of September or whatever that date is, after that, I would believe our overhead costs rise, but our intake is low. So to me, anybody staying after a certain time, whether we charge a different rate or we just close the park, I think that discussion should happen with council, because there is I know there was a person in there, or a camper in there, and I believe we were losing money at the time that the individual was there all winter long. You know, housing and making sure there's heat on and all that, but also the snow removal. So I'm not sure when we should have that discussion. Ms. Torval?
Thank you. That is something that we can bring forward at another time
Okay.
to discuss.
Thank you. Councillor Dussault?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess that also kind of answers my question. Because it says no residency other than the live-in host. I was just wondering how that is maintained and how that is monitored.
Staff?
Thank you. Sorry for clarity on if it's all year round, if someone is staying there, how is it maintained or monitored if there isn't a live-in host? It comes back to the district. The district staff is overseeing.
Thank you. Councillor Julik?
I'm interested in what you have said, Mayor Kakauka, in regards to the cost, particularly after September 30th, is I have my own history there at the park as an operator and the costs that go with that. So in that report, going forward, I would like to see the option of, and maybe this is a motion thing then, a lot of RVs now, so you have electric heating and electric water heaters, and then because propane is so expensive, then people just put little electric heaters in their holiday trailers. So I do know that there's other RV parks that put meters at the sites, and because there's only I think it's 12 sites that, it's just the sites that are west of the wash house that are able to be year-round, that to look at what it would cost to put meters on there, so that if people want to stay, then if they're heating their units with electricity, from my knowledge, they go back to a full, they don't get any discounted rate after starting October 1st to May 15th. They have to pay the full 32 a day. So it's not really economical, but it could be for some folks that are staying in there. So I would agree with you for the extra costs and stuff. So if we're gonna allow that extra into after September 30th, that we look at putting some, when we get that report back, that meters are what that would look like.
Yeah, I think staff will bring that forward, and when we talk about meters and stuff, the cost and maybe to install them, maybe we just need to set a rate to make sure. I think we can have an average of knowing what they pull, and then go from there and just add it. I do have a question for staff, since I've heard that we need some cleanup done to the contract. It was mentioned by staff. Should this be deferred and have it come back? We're approving something that looks like there needs to be a few changes done within this contract. And I'm just wondering from staff side, should we just defer it, and then that way staff can just bring it back with the changes that have been talked about? Ms. Torval?
Thank you. I'll just, give me a moment.
Sure.
Joy? The changes are only in the appendix, correct? Do we need anything in the contract? Okay. So council can either approve this as amended, and we will take care of it, or council can, if you want to defer it until next meeting, would come up on your budget meeting agenda, then we could do it at that time. So whatever council's flavor is tonight.
Okay, I guess it's going to be up to council, but I'm going to put a motion on there to defer this contract until the next available meeting that staff can get it in front of us. Seconder? Councillor Dussault. Discussion. The reason I'm doing that, when I hear approve it as amended, I'd like to see the amended comments that have come up from council side. Not that staff has not captured it. I'm not saying that staff has not, but just to make sure it's in there, gives us legit information in front of us. Councillor Nobury.
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. So I am currently in favor of deferring it, just because staff says we'll receive it before May, and the operators will have time to get out there, because this is starting May 1st and we want to get it in time. So if staff feels that they can get it to us for the 24th, yep.
Thanks. Yeah, and I guess, it'll be up to council, maybe staff. I believe staff can move forward with the concept. I don't see it changing who the holder would be of the contract. And I know we've done it before previously, another rental that we own, that we did it with a golf course as well. So I would think these people know. I just don't like to approve something I haven't been able to read, so. Okay, any more discussion? Okay, call the question on the deferring of the contract. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. 9.2, Tumbler Ridge Oetheimer Hockey Club lease renewal. Report dated April 17th, 2023 from Facilities Manager regarding Oetheimer Hockey Club lease renewal. Recommendation. Councillor Julich.
That council directs administration to renew the TR Old-Timers Hockey Club lease agreement for a 5-year term commencing October 1st, 2022 and ending September 30th, 2027 at a rate of $2,228 with a 2% increase each year. And that council directs administration to continue charging the TR Old-Timers Hockey Club the primetime nonprofit adult rate of $102.49 per hour as per fees and charges by law 623.
Seconder. Councillor Noxana. Discussion. Counselor Dussault.
Okay, I went through our charter on this, and realistically, it can go for a 3-year, and then we can extend it for another 2. So I think 5 years is probably long enough. Holding someone in a 10-year agreement, what happens if the, what's the word I'm looking for? If the membership falls down, and then there's nothing, and then they're locked into a 10-year term. I don't think that's feasible. I think it should just stay at the 5 years. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Noberry.
Thank you, Mayor Kakaka. So I'm not currently in favor of the motion. I would be in favor of a reduction to the $1,000, which they requested. The old timers made I think, a reasonable request of us to reduce their rates because their membership is down. They're finding it difficult to pay that amount. And like 5 years, 3 years, I mean, if I would like to see it at lower term so that we can make this a smaller term deal with them so they can, get over this hump of low membership and they can get back up to where they should be. So I'd be more in favor of the 1,000, which they requested. But I'll wait to see what other council has to say before I make a motion.
Okay. Counselor Julich.
I think I'm actually looking for a fair bit more information before wanting to make this decision, and I'll go through it before I make a motion, because maybe somebody will have the answers
We
for
have a
me.
motion on the floor.
Okay, so I can't do that
careful.
anyways? Okay, so I'm not comfortable with the current motion because I'd like to see what the cost for the arena versus revenue is, and then a comparative for minor hockey and skating. So like if we're gonna give old timers hockey a break, why would we not give minor hockey and skating? Like, so what do those contracts look like? I think that we need to be cognizant of what's going on in the community. I think that staff made a good point within their report that, will other groups look for discounts and fees then? Absolutely they would, and why wouldn't they, in my opinion? So I'm kind of looking for any more information possibly that's out there with the clubs that in town that do use the arena. And then like, what's the difference between a grant and aid and charging for hockey? So like we fund all sorts of other things. And so why don't we fund these things? Why don't we get a grant and aid? And mostly it's because I'm not as familiar with anything to do with those organizations in town because I've not been part of them. So I feel like, so instead of like, why are they coming to us for a lease cost? Why wouldn't they come to us for a grant and aid? That kind of thing. So I'm kind of curious. I just feel like I don't have enough information myself to make a proper decision here today. The other thing is in the lease on page 38 of our package, it says the TR Old Timers Hockey Club does their own custodial to ensure the space is clean, and should upgrades be requested, the club would borne the expense. I'm kind of curious about that. Why would they borne that if they were improving our locker room?
So let me answer a few of these things, just because we're going to get too many of them, and I won't be able to answer them all, and I only know a few of them, and I'll have to go to staff for some of them. But I know being on council previously, they came forward with a letter looking at installing chargers and stuff within the room. It was at their cost. So they take, to me, they take ownership of the room in regards, they've been leasing that room for, I mean, I've been here 17 years, so I believe longer than myself. But when they do upgrades, they take on the expense. Now, there's certain things that previous council didn't allow them to do. They wanted to run power, they had to have an electrician there. Certain things to make sure it's within the legals of our district. So that's where they say how they board those. So if they put in charging stations, they board the cost of putting them in. Now, a certain part of it, they may not have been able to install. It had been done by an electrician. Sometimes they change something, and if they can't do it, then they pay the district to have the staff do it because it's something that staff have to do. But that's where they say how they board, because it's not something that would be done in every dress room. It's in the old timers dress room is one.
Okay, so that's specific to them because it's something they wanted done and not something that I guess for me, I just think that if it is, well, and that's a whole other discussion, so I'm not gonna go there. The other thing is I'm not super happy with the picture I need people to draw me a picture. This isn't a good one. So if I could, I don't know if it's easy to fix that up so I could actually understand, I can kind of get, because I know that I go down there, but there's no color in here and it says outlined in red below. So, yeah, I don't know if it's possible to get a better picture, but I would sure love one. Bottom line for me is I can't support this as it stands because I just don't have enough information.
Okay. Before I go to Councillor Hoffman, a couple things you mentioned was minor hockey and figure skating. The first term I sat on, the CEO brought forward an idea and a concept, and it went through. And that was when minor hockey and even figure skating, and they put in their slots what they need for practices, for games, for tournaments, and then obviously figure skating is their practices and then their year-end event. If there's any unused ice at a certain time, they can use that ice for free. It's a one lump sum payment. So if they, like, 1 year we had the provincials here, they didn't pay for the provincial ice because it was a lump sum ice amount. So that's where they're getting their discount, is it's a lump sum ice usage. If the ice is available this weekend, if it was still in and they were gonna host a tournament, they would not pay for that ice slot because it's over, and as long as the ice is available. If it's booked, it's totally different. Okay, and it's last minute openings as well. Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. I have to say that I'm not in favor as it's written right now either. I do have a large problem with the longer lease when we have different desires going over the time. I very much sympathize. I know that a lot of these people have been around and have been helping out around town. Definitely pulls at the cockles of my giving them a break, but I think if we start giving this group a break, we're going to have just everybody at all times, and we're going to be managing this a whole lot more than I would like to. I would be more open to something like changing what hours are considered prime time, if they're usually at 8 or 9 at night, and if we say 9 o'clock is non-prime time, that sort of thing. But that would be for the benefit of everybody if we're going to sort of work around. That's on page 41, if anybody else is wondering what I'm talking about. But a long-term lease I really don't like, and if there's to be a discount, I would rather manage it in a way that it would be available to the town in general, as opposed to just one group that we're bending the rules for. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hoffman. So I don't believe him, staff may be able to answer it, but I mean, I'll give it a shot. There is no hours or time selected for prime time and non-prime time. It comes down to the user group, whether it's minor, youth, and at the bottom, like game rates for people that are collecting admission for coming into the game. That's how the ice rates were set in regards to fundraisers and stuff. Oh, there you go. Oh, there you go. See, I guess should have read the bottom. Okay, I guess they have a time. I didn't realize it. I mean, they're selected at prime rate because of being adult. They're not a youth or that organization that they would give a discount to. One thing I will mention, I know I did read the letter previously, we give staff direction to work on it. One thing is, I'll remember, I said on council when COVID was here, they paid their full rate and were unable to use it. Just like minor hockey and all them, and I believe there was a discount given back to other organizations. I don't believe we ever did to the Oetheimer's, but there was discussion in regards, because minor hockey couldn't be used thing, but did they pay their full rate for figure skating? So I have a concern with that, because that was discussed in regards to that we looked at if nobody can use the ice, how do you pay for it? So, Councilor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kukalka. So some comments are saying, well, if we gave allowance to one group, we'd have to do it to others. And to be honest, if minor hockey or figure skating came in and said, hey, our numbers are low, we're having issues getting on the ice, getting up these numbers, I would happily support them. You know, same with this organization, but they're not asking for a reduction of their hourly rates. They're just looking for a reduction on their change room. I know it's a special circumstance because no one else pays for the change rooms, but that's just the one thing I think that we can help them out with. And it seems like they're okay with paying the higher amount, and that's okay. We'll make that that there, you know. So yeah, I'm gonna make a
already motion on the floor.
Amendment to the motion.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Make an amendment to the motion that we change the rate from $2,228 to $1,000.
With a 2% increase each year?
Yep, I don't want, that's
Okay,
not.
just
no
want to make
interest in
sure.
changing.
Okay, seconder on the amendment. Counselor Hoffman. Discussion on the amendment. Counselor Noxena.
I am not in favor of the amendment to the motion on the floor. Thank you for that. They get a dressing room. This isn't crucial to them practicing. This is one of 6 dressing rooms that we have. It means minor hockey, figure skating, anyone else cannot use that, even if there's tournaments. If they couldn't afford the dressing room, they can still use dressing rooms for practice without paying the $2,000 a year. I would be more in favor of having a discussion with them on their ice fees rather than the dressing room costs.
Counselor Hoffman.
Thank you, and thank you, Councilor Norbury, for pointing it out. I misread it. The "and" is a separator, and that's 2 separate clauses that we're looking at. I can't do that for 5 years. If we're going to, especially if they didn't get any returns over the time they weren't allowed to use it, I would be okay with some form of payback in that sense. But I would want to do that as a yearly contract, not a 5-year. You have a discount for 5 years going forward. So if we're going to do some consideration, given what occurred in the last few years, I think it's as a direct compensation for that. So I would want to know how much they paid and weren't able to use, and make that locker room that they've been using for a long time now available to them to balance that out. I think that just strikes me as fair. So I would be voting against as it currently is, because I would need more information before I would agree to that.
Thank you for that. Counselor Julich.
Yeah, I'm just going to vote against the amendment because I think because we also have to change about the time frame as well. And so I'm not comfortable with just this one amendment, so I'll be voting against it.
Okay. Any more discussion in regards to the amendment? Counselor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. If it pleases council, if it's the term, that's an issue. The next motion could be reducing the term, if that would make it more appeasing to council.
Thanks, Counselor Norbury. Any more discussion? Okay, call the question on the amendment. All in favor? Opposed? Amendment is defeated. Okay, any more discussion in regards to the recommendation on the floor? Counselor Julich.
I guess I just want to say, like, I really value the, I value the history of the Tumbler Ridge Oetheimer Hockey Club. I think that it's terrific. I just think that we need to make sure that we have, for me, I just need more information before I can vote in favor of any of this. I agree with Councillor Dussault. To do a 10-year isn't feasible, just when you look at the recommendation from staff. So I'm not comfortable with that. And in fact, Councillor Norbury, they are actually looking for a decrease in their ice time fees as well. So it's in the 3rd paragraph of their letter, the last sentence. So they are looking for a discount there. I just think that we need to have some parity with our groups in town. Like I said, I so appreciate that. I just need more information, like those lockers that are there, that are red in that hallway. How do those work?
Hang on a second. Mr. Orlov, can I just have staff answer in regards to lockers down the hockey hallway?
Thank you. Ms. McKay?
Thank you, Mayor, through the council. The lockers and... Try this again. Thank you, Mayor, through to council. The lockers that are in the hallway are rented to anybody who wants to purchase them for that ice season. So those are not in any of this equation with the old timers. They don't rent those spaces.
Thank you. Councillor Julich.
Yeah, so I would like to see some comparative. You know how when you go on the websites and they show you, like, this is the phone and these are the 3 different phones? I would like to see the 3 main user groups with what their agreements and stuff are before looking to give special consideration to one of them over the 3.
Okay. Any more discussion? So I'm just gonna make a couple comments, and it's actually in their letter that they sent to council and staff, and I think they are a little bit different when we talk about, and not that minor hockey and figure skating is important, very, very important, don't take me wrong, but they do different things, and I think they do different things because of they're in a different age group, I guess you'll say it. Like they give to scholarships to our high school students. I know for a fact some of the youth that were unable to play hockey due to having no equipment, the old timers will make sure those individuals have equipment to be on the ice. I just read their letter, and I just want to make sure that's well known. I think when we try to get minor hockey, get all these things in front of us to use as a levying tool or the information, they're all one-offs. Minor hockey is different than figure skating, and then both organizations are different than the old timers. And that's why I think, to me, if council needs more information, whether we ask for a delegation from the old timers, but to have staff bring that forward, the leases are or the contracts are pretty easy to send to council. I don't know when the last one was done, but again, that's totally different groups that we're trying to use to me to see if we should give them youth ice time or prime time ice time. Different that they have a dressing room where minor hockey changes dressing rooms except for the female to having a junior A team here. There's obviously now there's available dressing rooms to have the female dressing room back at this time. So there is a difference there, I think, is when the old timers got together, and looks like 30 years. So I was trying to find out how long they've been here. It says like over 30 years. So I think they try to take ownership of the dressing room. I believe they leave gear in there hanging and stuff like that, and that's why they've done the upgrades to the dressing room on their cost, not the taxpayers or the district. But that'd be just my comment. Councillor Julik.
Yeah, and I guess what I would say is I would guess that the other folks from those other clubs would possibly disagree with you about the differences. I think that each of those groups do something unique for our community. I agree that the old timers are the hockey club, just the longevity of them is amazing, and the things that they do for the community are so as well. I could argue that there's things within minor hockey and figure skating that come through as well. I know figure skating sponsors kids who can't afford to do the skating and things like that as well. So for me, it's more about the costs and stuff like that. I'm not looking, what my concern is then it becomes a pull and punch thing within the organization. So what I can recall is back when the signs went out for like the sign advertising going out on the fences. At one time, it was one group that did that, and then they accepted the money. Then and I'm probably messing this up a little bit, but then it got put out so that each of those clubs could reach out to a business and say, okay, would you put your advertising here? And then that club would get that money. Then it became a duking it out kind of thing. There was discourse between the different clubs. Well, how come you phone that person? That person's always supported minor hockey and things like that. My concern is doing this, that we would be opening the door to that. Because I agree, like for me, how big of a hardship is it for them to have that dressing room? Like, what does that reflect for the other clubs? Like, is that really that big a deal? Like, because to me, then maybe it needs to be a grant and aid or something rather than a lease, is what I'm looking for. Like, I just think that we need to be, and I'm happy, I'm voting against it tonight simply because I don't have enough information to make a proper decision.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Clickash.
Yes, Your Worship. I know that a lot of the old timers are hockey coaches as well, and they coach both the girls and the boys in hockey. And I think that they've done a lot for the community, tried to improve things, and I think maybe we should give them a few allowances with this moving ahead.
Thanks, Councillor Clickash. So I'm going to go to staff, and it was just in regards to your question, Councillor Julik, in regards to granting aid or fee for service and why a lease contract. Again, I've only been on council for a short term. Is there a reason why? I'm assuming they don't need the money for a grant and aid or a fee for service, and that's why they do leases, just like we do in regards to Monkman RV Park, the golf course and such, but I'm not trying to put staff on the spot, but it was just a question. I had written it down on the earlier side that Councillor Duke asked it. I'm just not sure if we can get clarity on why the difference.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Without looking into it further, the grant and aid and fee-for-service is just that. It's to assist groups who are providing a service to the community. I'd have to kind of clarify as to what kind of service the Oetheimer's provide to the community. I know they provide an avenue for recreation, but that is just for a select group. That is not for the whole community, whereas a grant and aid and a fee-for-service is typically for the whole community, from what I can recall, without digging further into those policies or those, yeah.
Yep. Thank you for that.
So.
Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Calc. I had a couple questions. Do we know how long they've had that change room for?
I guessed it when I went with long-term renewal decrease rate.
15 years?
Yeah, it says 30 years at one point, 15 years. Do we know the exact time that they've had the dress room for, Mr. Orville?
I know it's a long time, but I can't pinpoint a year. It's a long time.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Norbury?
Thank you. And are they, this may be a question for them, so I apologize, but are they considered a for-profit organization or a non-profit organization? Because I mean, just looking at the costs, their private function social. I mean, if they're a nonprofit, that may be an option for us for them.
I'm not sure if staff's aware. Mr. Orville?
I would classify them as a nonprofit or not-for-profit.
Thank you. Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Calc. Thank you, staff, and that's sort of where I'm going at. I mean, ultimately, right now, they're asking for a renewal of their locker room. I do not support taking their locker room away from them. They're asking for assistance because they are in a financial hardship. In the past, we have assisted them. Yeah, I think we should be supporting them, and especially when they come in and say, hey, we need assistance, we can't keep up. You know, let's try and work with them. So that's where I'm at. I mean, I think we have some room there with the nonprofit option there to help them. Yeah, how can we get to that point? Do we need to make a motion that we charge them at a nonprofit amount, or is this something staff can just take with and manage it themselves?
It would have to be a motion we make due to, I imagine that's the class they sit in. It would have to be a motion if we want to change their ice time. And right now, we still have a motion on the floor. Councillor Noxana.
I'm in favor of the motion on the floor. I would agree that the Oetheimer's are a huge benefit to our community. I'm not in favor of taking their dressing room away, but that dressing room has value, and them having it as just theirs takes away from what the other clubs can use. So our current recommendation is 5 years at the full rate, and I believe we're also charging them already a nonprofit adult rate, a primetime nonprofit adult rate of 102. So I'm not sure what else we could do other than adjust our prime rate hours.
Thank you. Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to float that out there since we have a bunch of things going on here, and I think what I'm hearing is we generally want to support this group, and we also have other ideas and varying on how to do it. So this is just for discussion. I know there's a motion on the floor, so I am not making a motion right now. What I would like to see is that they do formalize their nonprofit standing in some shape, fashion, or form so that we can directly support them instead of doing this sort of lease arrangement. Don't know if they'll want to do that, but if we give them some time to do so, they might be interested. So what I was thinking is that we meet their request of $1,000 for this coming year. I think they've done enough, and I still don't like the idea that they paid and weren't able to access, so I would like that investigated, but I'll put that to the side for now. And just say that for this year, we want you to keep the locker room, we'll give it to you what you're asking for, and there's some things we'd like to see, and we appreciate what you've done, but let's just formalize that, and then we can treat it a little bit differently next year if we do formalize that. I think that's hopefully it's a compromise we can at least mostly get behind. But of course, I'd like to hear what everybody else thinks. So to be clear, we give them a 1-year lease for that 1,000 rate for them to have their locker room. And then we essentially talk to them about whether it's scholarship for hockey or support or whatever it is that they already do, that we say, okay, that's what you guys are doing. You're the Old Timers Tumbler Ridge nonprofit, and we go from there. So either way, as I'll be voting against the 5-year term at the full rate, but what does everybody think about that as a compromise for today?
If you want to have a debate in regards to that, put it as an amendment. The debate should happen with the motion that's on the floor. If you want to hear that, to put that amendment out there. If you want to put the amendment out there, I'll give you the opportunity.
Okay.
Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to amend the current motion to a 1-year lease for $1,000 and revisit this next year after there's other activity. That would allow them to have some other activities go on before we decide for the long term on this.
So 1 year for one case
Done.
instead of a thing. Okay. Seconder on the amendment. Councillor Dussault. Discussion on the amendment. It's on the amendment. Councillor Julik.
I'm in favor of that. I actually was going to put a motion on the floor that we don't charge them anything. We confirm their nonprofit society. If I would respectfully disagree that fee for service and grant and aids are for the whole community. We give money to the Tumbler Ridge Youth Services Society. We give money to I can't think of all of them off the top of my head, but if we're agreeing that this is a nonprofit organization in our town that does stuff for the community, and for that reason we would give them the change room for free, that makes more sense to me than a lot of the other things. We do it for the Art Council. They get to store their stuff there. In the dressing rooms, there's lots of storage area within the dressing rooms that people get to store their stuff in. We don't charge them. Oh, I'm seeing Councillor Noxana will talk to that. But so for me, I'm actually okay I was just going to say that let's see if they have an old, recommend them to do it as a grant and aid. Because if that's what they're doing as a nonprofit, we pay for the lion setup and takedown of the bingo. So we do all of those things. And if what we're saying here is that we need to support the old timers because they do these community functions, then let's encourage them to go a different way rather than the lease. That would be, I'm happy to support the motion that the amendment that Councillor Hoffman has on the floor, but that's also, I was actually going to just say, well, let's not charge them at all for the year and let's hash this out later, but whatever works for me.
Okay, and I just want to make it clear that we don't know that they're a not-for-profit. I just don't know that for a fact, and no staff didn't 100% say that. I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. So I'll support the amendment on the floor. I think that is what they're asking for. It gives us some time to sort of flush out what we and the Old Timers hockey need, so that we can support them in their future. So at this point in time, I think it's a great idea to go 1 year, and then we can work out the details moving forward.
Okay, thank you. I guess just to staff, so Councillor Hoffman, I'll throw your mic on, but none of the other recommendation changes except for instead of 5 years, it's going to go to 1 year, and it's for 1K, but the rest of the charge for the ice and everything else stays the same, correct?
Yes, I think this is just a reasonable compromise, and as Councilor Norbury said, that's the idea, is that we have 1 year to figure out status, and if they want to change their status and all that stuff. So that is the recommendation. 1 year, don't need to worry about percentage increase, $1,000, and everything else stays the same.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Torval.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I can confirm that the Old Timers Hockey Club is a nonprofit association registered in British Columbia.
Thank you. Okay, I'll call the question on the amendment. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Okay, any more discussion on the amended motion? Councilor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. They're asking for a reduction in fees. We're seeing in the recommendation, it's prime time nonprofit adult at 102. To them, it seems high. I think we can do better. I think we can help them out, maybe go to the nonprofit adult social. So I'll make an amendment, so we don't just sit around talking, that we reduce their rate to the social nonprofit adult at $76.87 per hour.
Seconder? Counselor Dussault. Discussion on the amendment. Counselor Noxena, sorry.
I'm not in favor of the amendment as it stands. I think that if we were to change them into a non-prime time, we need to change our prime time hours, not just pick a rate that we would like to charge someone.
Thank you. Any more discussion? Yeah, I'll just make a comment. I think we've done something in regards to a year. As a one amendment, that motion is yet to fully pass. I think that's a start for them and gives staff an opportunity to reach back out. And if there's any clarity from council, we'll get that before we move forward. But at this point, I will not support reduction in regards to the ICE rate until we have that information back from staff in regards to if we're changing the time of the prime rate, like Councillor Noxana just said, or that. I think at this point for the 2023 year, 2024, I guess too, hockey season, that I think that they would be happy with us supporting the letter that had come in earlier this year. So I won't support it. Any more discussion? Okay, I call the question on the amendment. And that's the amendment to change the ICE rate to $76.87. All in favor? Opposed? Motion's defeated. Okay, so now I'm going to call any more discussion in regards to the amended motion. The amended motion is just a 1 year for $1,000 rate for room rental. ICE and all stays the same. Any more discussion? Okay, call the question. All in favor? Carried. Just staff, do we need any clarity from council on what we're looking for reaching back out to the old timers? I know that obviously they're going to be coming forward anyways on their own when they realize it's 1 year, not a 3 year or a 5 year that they're used to a 3 year. But maybe we can just reach out. I think we heard around the table, maybe they can come in as a delegation. Probably the best thing, and we can go that way. And there's no hurry. I mean, they have it for a year, so, okay. 9.3, addition of heavy equipment operator position with Public Works. Report dated April 17th, 2023, from the Director of Operations and Infrastructure regarding additional of heavy equipment operator position with the Public Works. Recommendation, Councillor Julich.
Before I make the motion or the recommendation, I'm wondering, will this come up at the budget meeting?
So you want to move for discussion? I'll second that motion for discussion.
Okay.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Julich.
Thanks. Giving me a lesson on procedure. That's good, because I was like, so for me, if this is going to come up at the budget meeting, I'm happy to discuss it there. I think we still have a fair bit left on the agenda, and it's just there, and it's part of the budget stuff. So I'm comfortable to wait and have, if it's coming up at the budget meeting. If it's not, then yes, I would like to have further discussion now.
I don't think it'll be part of the discussion at the budget meeting, but it's going to be, because I'm going to put a motion on the floor that we direct staff to produce a report at the next budget meeting for all positions within the District of Tumbler Ridge that's been added for the 2023 budget. Seconder. Councillor Julich. Discussion. So I'll mention that I only know of 2. I know we had a third that the council has a thing of defeated of adding the position at this point. If there's any other positions within the district that staff is adding within the budget, if it can just make sure it's in there so we can read it. Perfect. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Okay, moving on to 9.5. Jump Trail Infrastructure Report dated April 17th, 2023, from the Director of Operations and Infrastructure regarding the Jump Trail Infrastructure. Recommendation. Councillor Noxana.
The council receives this report for discussion.
Seconder. Councillor Noberry. All in favor? Carried. Councillor Noxana.
Am I allowed to add in that we approve, or should we discuss it first?
Put a motion on the floor.
And that council approves $150,000 for building the jump trail infrastructure during summer 2023.
Seconder. Councillor Julich. Discussion. Councillor Noxana.
This is a really cool project, guys. Just letting everyone know. I'm absolutely in support of this. We heard a presentation from our Mountain Bike Association, and they have people coming up this summer that can do the work, and it makes our dirt jumps safe for our community. So absolutely in support.
Thanks, Councillor Oksana. And I'll support the recommendation you put on the floor, and the same thing. We already have an organization that's coming up. When we heard in regards to the delegate we had, which from the Mountain Bike Association. One question is I seen the alternate was 165, and is that because of the travel costs and the infrastructure of bringing those individuals here? Okay. Councillor Julik.
Yeah, absolutely in support of this. Again, with maps, I suck at maps. I'm so gonna have to like do some work ahead of time. I'm like, okay, where is this going again? What's that? Oh, and fair enough, like I don't need to have the map to approve it. My only question is, can we use the funds from the Growing Communities funds for this project? Rather than putting, like, can we use those funds?
I'll ask Ms. Torval. I know we're waiting for that report to come before council. Ms. Torval?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. And no, we're not able to use the Growing Communities Fund, but we do have the gas tax fund that we can draw from.
Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kukalkan. Thank you for that explanation, Ms. Torval. Any way that we can add these great projects to our community without adding to taxation is a great thing to do. I support the recommendation on the floor because I support what the Mountain Bike Association wants to do down there. It adds to another source of activity for our residents as well as adds to the adventure tourism industry that we're trying to grow in Tumbler Ridge. And I think diversifying in our community is always a smart thing, and this is a great plan. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm just going to throw it out there. I'm going to put an amendment out there that council approves 160,000 instead of the 150. I'll explain it in discussion. Seconder, Councilor Oksana. Discussion. So the reason I put that out there, I don't think it's fair that we piggyback off the Tumbler Ridge Mountain Bike Association and have them pay all the travel costs for the company coming here. I think we should help assist paying that for that company to come here, and I think that's where the 10,000 goes towards the Mountain Bike Association, or help can cover that cost. That's the reason I'd change the motion. Okay. Any more discussion in regards to the amendment? Okay. Call the question. All in favor of the amended motion or amendment? Sorry. Carried. Any more discussion in regards to the amended motion? Okay, call the question. Oh, Councillor Hoffman, I'm sorry.
No worries. Figure that the point 2 that we approve 165,000 for the 2024 budget. I thought if we are pretty much in agreement with that we can amend the motion to include that and be done. I think that from the plans that were discussed before, I have no problem saying that the 2024 budget can be approved right now as well. I haven't made a motion, so I'd rather have the discussion first. So that's the only thing I want to bring.
Yeah, so just on that, the 165 for 2024 would be if we didn't want to do it this year. That was the extra, the 15,000 to transport the company back to Tumbler. This is, we're saving, but again, that's why I added the 10 to offset the cost and share it with the Tumbler Ridge Mountain Bike Association. Okay. Call the question. All in favor of the amended motion? Carried. Okay. Yep. 9.6, resolution of a grant flowing through funding request for SARS. Report dated April 17th, 2023 from the Director of Economic Development and Tourism regarding resolution of a grant flow through funding request for search and rescue. Councillor Oksana. Oh, sorry.
To step out, as my husband is the president of Search and Rescue. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, recommendation, Councilor Dussault.
That council supports a funding application for the District of Tumbler Ridge to be the primary applicant for the application to the Community Emergency Preparedness Fund on behalf of the Tumbler Ridge Search and Rescue.
Seconder, Councilor Norbury. Discussion. Councilor Julik.
I think I read the report and stuff, and I think it's a really good idea. We have lots of water around us, and timeliness is important when you're doing a search and rescue, and so if we can get some of our members trained up, that's a really good thing.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. I think it's, the proximity and the quickness and being close and being able to respond is a big difference in the area, especially if we have locals. So support the motion. Okay, any more discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carried. If we can grab Councillor Noxana, please. Okay. 9.7, Community Center ATM, report dated April 17th, 2023, from the Manager of Recreation regarding the Community Center ATM. Before the recommendation, I have to excuse myself as I have a pecuniary conflict. Councillor Dussault. No, you'll have to come up here, Councillor Dussault. Sister, please. Yep.
Okay. First, I would like to say thank you for this report. Oh, move for information or discussion?
It'll come back to you. That council receives the community center ATM report for information, or for discussion.
Seconder? Councillor Nobury? All in favor? For discussion, yes. Okay. Councillor Julik.
I would like to know, did we put out an expression of interest? Rather, I understand in the report, there's some considerations about staff, a place to hold the money and all of that stuff. So I'm wondering, did we put out an expression of interest for somebody to run that for us? Rather, like to have that in our building and then the DTR not actually having any, not needing to do any hands-on there?
I'll turn that to staff.
Thank you, Council. The motion was for staff to bring back a report talking about the feasibility of having the ATM located in the community center. So there was no motion to release an expression of interest or anything to that effect. So this is what we're bringing back for you tonight, is what Council had requested.
Thank you, Mrs. Torval. Follow-up, Councillor Julik.
I am then happy to put a motion on the floor that we put out an expression of interest. I can wait for, I'm going to just take that back. There's other people that have some stuff to say, and then I will make a motion if it looks like it's going that way.
Okay. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Chair Dussault. Thank you, staff, for this report. Just recently, I looked into costs of point-of-sale terminals. I went through 3 different vendors, Shopify, Moneris, and there's one more. I'm sorry, the name is eluding me. But those options are much cheaper than $4,000 purchase or a lease amount. I believe it's a 400. One of the Square is, you can get like the terminal with the tap and you can type it all in for $400 upfront cost. I'd be happy to assist the organizations if they want to go down that route. And it makes sense to me that, we encourage them to go down that route versus, asking an organization or the District of Tumbler Ridge to, have this upfront cost, because it is a smaller amount. I mean, if people really want to, they can get the little square that plugs into the bottom of the device for $100 a month, and they just take a 3% cost. Like it's pretty minimal. So I think there's options for user groups that are interested, and that are much more cost effective. So, yeah, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Noxana.
Thank you. Yeah, okay. I'm not in favor of the district purchasing an ATM machine to put in the rec center. We have ongoing issues with some local youths who are up to mischief all the time. It looks like there's a lot of risk for the district if there was, I can't remember where it was said. Oh, we're liable for fraudulent, counterfeit, lost, or stolen information. It just seems like a bigger headache than we need. I think that if we had individuals willing to support our user groups to get them digital, this is the way people are moving. And I think it could even be cheaper if you don't have the tap machine, you were invoicing online. I know some nonprofits do that already. And we have several businesses in town within a minute walk that have ATMs already. We can encourage them to have different opening and closing hours if needed. We can give them the information when our events are happening here in town. There's just a lot of different options that don't put a ton of risk directly onto the district.
Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you. Chair? Chair. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the legal considerations caught my eye as well. I just don't think I'd want to put this on the community center staff when there are better technologies available nowadays than this. From what I recall, the point was that especially out of town visitors for a hockey tournament such would like access to concessions and such things like that. I don't think it needs to be a here's cash. It's here's the same way to pay as you would in most other places. And as Councilor Norbley said, there are, I think, better technologies to do that. And I wouldn't want to spend any more time on this. For 4,000, if we were looking to create a revenue generating source, then we can argue if this would be value with surcharges, but I don't think that's what this is about. I think we should go with the modern stuff and not put a clunky machine somewhere that is a target for mischief, to borrow Councilor Noxana's word.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to put out to, I had just asked for some information regarding the ATM from staff, and having this information coming back, it was, wow. I do agree, there are other ways, so maybe we should ask staff to maybe reach out to the organizations that do use the community center to see if they would be willing to go a different option when it comes to doing transactions. Councillor Julik.
Because I hear what everybody's saying, I still would like to, and I'm going to make a motion that we ask staff to put out an expression of interest to somebody, to the community, to whomever, to put a machine in the community center. And well, if you want to ask for a seconder first, and then I'll give you my reasons.
Seconder? Councillor Dussault.
Okay. The reason I want to go that way is because while I understand there's the other options of squares and stuff like that, I think about the Lions. They are stretched with their volunteer capacity already. To get them, to ask them to set up something else electronic and to figure that all out is one thing. I think about the costs when I worked at the library. The reason we didn't have it set up is because the costs were too high. It didn't make sense for the trade-off. I think that if we give the responsibility to another company, if there's an expression of interest, if there isn't, then absolutely let's go down the other way. But I know as a parent, when I had 3 little kids, I didn't want to hike them, pack them all up. Like, so they're in the arena, they've gotten down, they don't have their boots on anymore, or their ski suit and all of that. Now I got to go over to the grocery store or to the bank or to the other place to get the thing. And I can't leave my kids there necessarily, whereas it's not so hard to just go to the bank machine that's there. I absolutely don't agree, or I absolutely do not want it to be something that the District of Tumbler Ridge takes on. That's why I would like to see an expression of interest. I think there's lots of different reasons, and it's about cash, and some people don't do debit. And if it's just a matter of going and get that $20, then it's there. And it's somebody else's responsibility. If somebody wants to take on the responsibilities and the liabilities, I think that's great. But to just say, no, we're not going to do it, and say that the user groups have to come up with a different way of payment, I think is, if we're on this path already, let's put out an expression of interest.
Councillor Noxana.
I am not in favor of the motion on the floor. There's so many other options for user groups to collect payments. Also, I think it's just given knowledge if you're going to a rink, especially for a hockey tournament, because there will be raffle baskets, you bring cash, and not all rinks have ATMs, so you plan ahead and do the thing. And also, I think this is a conversation that absolutely has to be had with, say, the Lions. There has been instances where their volunteers have not felt safe walking to their vehicle in the evening with a box of cash. And volunteers from other organizations who are in the building do that with them. If we can encourage them or give them options to move away from having so much cash in hand all the time, maybe that's a way to make them feel a bit safer in our building, in our community.
Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Charity. So I'm not in favor of the motion now. The cost of these machines, the square terminal is $400 capital. That's it. And I think a 3% cost per transaction, it's very affordable. It's much cheaper than putting that on to the user to go spend $2 for $20. You know, that's a 10% cost, right? I mean, it scales, right? So that's maybe not a fair comment, but it is a relatively simple thing to set up. I've spoken with the sales reps, and also there's 3 other places downtown you can go if there is concerns about the time at which some places open. The bank is always open. You know, the gas station's open quite early. If somebody's traveling from out of town, they have access to that. It's not too far of a walk. I would be concerned about the liability of even having anyone else's ATM in the building. Yeah, I think it makes sense to try and get them on the tap system because that's more convenient for everyone. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question for staff. If it would be viable to have a portable machine that is going through the community center instead of each individual organization having a either portable machine, that we have some way of using the infrastructure that's already there. I know we'd probably want to keep it separate, but this might be even temporary, that no capital outlay other than perhaps one portable device that could be borrowed for use. And that's the one question and a comment. I've seen, I think it was the theater club use a cell phone in their computer to do tap. Like it's becoming a really accessible technology. Like I don't think you even need necessarily a $400 capital outlay to do this. And last thing, Councillor Julik, if you're going to use your debit card to grab cash, you can use your debit card to pay for what's there. Like I mean, that's. That said, I'll support your motion because I think giving somebody in town the opportunity to do this, if they want to do this, I'm okay with. I just think there are better solutions than that.
Councillor Norbury.
I have a question for staff there.
We'll turn to staff for clarity.
Thank you. The question that you had asked about the mobile, kind of like a mobile unit, there still would be, I guess, some liability associated with it, maybe. I'm not 100% sure. So we're getting all those ideas, and they're wonderful ideas. So if I could make a suggestion, rather than voting on the motion that is on the floor right now to release an EOI for someone, how about, we've taken all your great ideas. How about we defer this motion and bring back a report with those options and just see what's feasible and what isn't. Because there's a little bit of homework that we're going to have to do. We can't answer all these questions here tonight, obviously. But yeah, so if council, if that's the flavor of council, then that's what I would suggest. But again, it's just my suggestion, so.
Thank you, Ms. Turville. I will go to Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Charity. So these portable terminals are tied to a bank account. So it may be difficult if we have one for the district. I mean, I think it could be potentially possible, but it makes sense that the individual organizations set it up to their bank account that they're using. And yeah, the square reader that you're referring to is $70. They can just plug into the bottom and help Dr. Iffy with one, and pretty quick and simple.
Councillor Julik.
I would like to defer this motion and have staff come back to us with some information as Ms. Torville suggested.
Seconder? Discussion? Oh, Counselor Norbury, seconds. Discussion? All in favor? Carried. Can somebody let the mayor back in, please?
Actually, no, it's a little bit. You want to take a break?
9.8 District of Tumbler Ridge Scholarship, EO-10. Report dated April 17, 2023, from the Intern CEO and Director of Corporate Services seeking the adoption of the District of Tumbler Ridge Scholarship Policy EO-10. Recommendation, Councillor Julik.
That council receives the District of Tumbler Ridge Scholarship Policy EO-10 for adoption.
Seconder, Councillor Dussault. Discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Travel expenses for TRMF Executive Director reported dated April 17, 2023 from the Deputy Corporate Officer regarding travel expenses for the Tumbler Ridge Museum Foundation Executive Director. Recommendation, please. Councillor Dussault.
That council authorizes flight and accommodation expenses for the TRMF Executive Director to attend a Ministry of Tourism meeting in Victoria, BC.
Seconder, Councillor Norbury. Discussion? Okay, call the question. All in favor? Carried. Schedule of meetings. So just so everybody's aware, Let's Talk is on Wednesday night at 6 p.m. start. And I would like to know what council thinks of an earlier start on April 24th for the budget meeting. I'm not sure if council's available, but I was thinking in the morning I am flying out, or hoping to fly out, as I start to have meetings, and then I'll be flying into Victoria to meet with the ministry. Councillor Julik?
Yeah, I'm flexible for that day. I'm happy to do it in the morning.
Okay. So I did talk with staff. There's no concern from their side. There was no concern from the budget specialist. Just looking for clarity from staff council to make sure everybody's okay with 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock. And then we just need to change it, put it as a motion. So if there's any concern with 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, Councillor Hoffman.
The only thing I would say is if we're running late, that I'd need to take a break to do a pickup, but as long as it starts 9 o'clock or later, I'm fine with that.
Councillor Dussault.
I am also fine with the 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning as well.
Okay. Okay. I'll make a motion that we change the budget meeting for April 24th for 9 a.m. Need a seconder. Councillor Julik. Discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carried. I have also been talking with staff. There may be an opportunity, or not an opportunity, I apologize, but we might have to add some more budget meetings May 1st to May 5th. Just so council's aware, obviously we'll have some stuff in front of us next week. And then the report, I would hope staff's okay with the timeline for that. It seemed like when I talked to Ms. Torville, they would be in regards to positions, because I did ask about it. I know that one came up, and I just thought if we had them together with a little bit of an update on why, a little easier for us to debate it than just to question staff on it. So I know NCLJ is the following week, and that's why I figured if there is anything, it'll be between May 1st and May 5th. Council's available for that time frame? Okay, Councillor Julik.
I may have some other commitments that I can probably adjust except for one of them, so, but I can't remember that date off the top of my head, so if you just bring it, I can.
Just email me, please. And there won't be anything set or from staff side in regards to a special meeting. We'll give as much heads up as we can via email or phone calls. And that all depends what happens on next Monday. But there is the mill rates to be set and stuff like that. I'm not sure if we'll have all that information next week. Okay, scheduled meetings, anything else from council? Okay. Moving on to any notice of motions. Councillor Hoffman?
I don't know how the procedure is for this, but based on the library's presentation today, can that be included in the budgetary meeting that we're going to have next week?
What's that, sorry? Hang on a second. Councillor Norbury, I'll step out. Yeah. Sorry.
Sorry. So,
Sorry, Councillor Hoffman.
no worries. Based on what was presented today by the library, I'm wondering what I need to do. I need to do a motion here for it to be discussed in the next budgetary meeting specifically, since we previously discussed it? Or is that just an open budgetary meeting?
Open, we'll discuss it, whatever's in the budget.
Okay. No, that's fine. Then there's no need to make a motion.
Want to go up, Councillor Norbury? Sorry, I wasn't sure what you were going to say, and he's excused himself due to being an employee, so it's only fair.
Anything library?
Sensitive little ears, yeah.
Okay, any notice of motions? Yep, that's totally different than what's here. Notice of motions to be put out there for it to come forward to the next meeting, so. Okay, 10.1 RFP and EOI published in agendas. At the April 3rd, 2023 regular meeting of council, Councillor Julick brought the following notice of motion forward. Councillor Julick.
That staff brings back a report with information regarding RFPs and EOIs being published in agendas.
Okay, seconder. Councillor Norbury. Discussion. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kukalka. So I'm kind of like a little more explanation from Councillor Julick what she's looking for. I'm not against it. I'm just kind of curious what you're looking for in regards to this. It seems like a very large ask. We could be seeing a very large or very small report. So just kind of curious what you're going at here.
Councillor Julick.
I am looking, my concern is that, for example, TR Days RFP, the details of such are publicly released within our agendas. And I feel like that takes away the ability to get competitive proposals. I feel like if we were putting out the next level up from an RFP, when people are bidding on things, those things are kept closed until they're opened and that kind of thing. I'm just looking for information as to why they're publicly, like, so it says in here now how TR Days, this is what they're charging. So if somebody else wanted to come and compete for that contract, we've already published what the current contractors are using. And I feel like that keeps us from getting proper competitive things. Now, what I'm understanding is that's possibly, that's part of the community charter. If it's not, that's what I'm looking for, specifically that. Is it something that we have to do legally? And if it isn't, I would like to possibly discuss not having that happen.
Just looking for clarity in regards to the information that's being put in our agendas. No different than the golf course restaurant. It's open information, and so they attach it to our agendas. Now, is there something else to do? I mean, that's forward for council or for staff to bring forward. I don't disagree with you. Any more discussion? Clear enough, Councilor Norbury? Okay. Staff have any questions? Clear? Okay. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 10.2, delegation forms, personal information published in agendas. At the April 3rd, 2023 regular council meeting, Councillor Julick brought forward the following notice of motion. Councillor Julick.
That we look at the policy about delegation forms regarding personal information.
Seconder, Councillor Noxana. Discussion. Okay. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councilor's business. Thanks, Councilor Norbury. Just again, for council that are attending these, for your liaisons, to make sure we have our reports in Geopark Museums. The TR Health Task Force is a little bit different. To me, when you guys approve your minutes from the previous meeting, staff will get that into the agenda. So if you can just make sure they do that. And to me, that's the same as the Children's Task Force. Once your minutes from the previous meeting are approved, we can have them added. to the agenda, and just that way council's all up to date on the 2 task force that we have. But in regards to all other ones, if we can please have you guys fill those out, keeps council updated on what's happening in all the other organizations. Councilor Noberry.
Thank you, Mayor Kakaka. So for council's business, I want to report that we went to Kofi last week. It was a informative conference about what's going on in the forest sector. The only thing, like, I think the biggest takeaway from that is we got Premier Eby to hold up a Tumbler Ridge visitor guide, and, you know, he was talking about maybe coming up for a venture with his family. Maybe that's what he tells everybody. But either way, I think Mayor Kakalka could probably knock on a door down in Victoria to see if he's coming or not, so. Well done.
Thanks. Yeah, went to Kobe for the first time in 2 terms of council. Actually, Thursday was very interesting, I thought. Conference really well done, great presentations. I didn't partake in all of their trade show. Their trade show is definitely set up more for the mill owners and stuff like that in regards to equipment and stuff like that. But it was great. We did have staff travel with us. We had our executive director travel. I think that was phenomenal. We needed something. It was done. There'll be more notes coming from our executive director that took notes at some of the conferences. But to be able just to do the conference, and I'll be honest, I'm looking forward to the NCLJ, the FCM as well, having staff there. I think it really helps. I know Councilor Norbert and I decided, where do you want to go for supper? We left it up to staff to make sure there was room where we were going. I mean, it's the biggest Kofi they've ever had in Prince George, over 600 people. It was the biggest one attended. So Councilor Norbert already mentioned in regards to the Premier. Yeah, and again, I'll thank staff, made sure we had the visitor guide inside the room. Actually went across to the vehicle to make sure we had some at our table. So thanks for that. We had the opportunity to present it to our Premier. And yeah, looked through it, said, oh, geez, I should bring my family up. So I know myself and the executive director will be probably drafting up an email to send off to Eby after our return from Victoria. Maybe offer for him to fly into Fort St. John and drive Highway 52 after the Modi minister meeting. And then we can all discuss with him. Hopefully he can come up and then we can all meet and then we can just discuss how his road trip was. I think it's prime time when we have an opportunity to invite somebody like that up. Hopefully he takes it. There'd be an opportunity to be able to show him the highway, take him to our museum and the geopark and explain why we actually went down to Victoria and talked to the ministry. And hopefully we get something from it. I am looking forward to next week to being in Victoria in regards to the tourism minister, trying to see if we can get some funds in regards to our Tumbler Ridge Museum Foundation, in regards to them collecting and holding fossils for their jurisdictions. So I hope it goes through, but I'll be honest, it's a pat on the back from all previous councils, mayors, Don McPherson, Darren Wren. It's not me. I hope this opportunity really comes up. I mean, there's been some pretty good discussion about it, so I hope. I did meet with the Tumbler Ridge Secondary School in regards to the counselor seat. We're going to move forward on maybe a different concept, so that'll be coming back in front of council. And then we went down, myself and staff went down and met with Soto First Nations. Very good discussion. Be a better report coming. I didn't take a whole bunch of notes, to be honest. Miss Curry was there and she definitely does a good job. But very open conversation with Soto. Very looking to work with us. If they can help us, obviously they will. And if we can help them, I told them that I put a hand out for all of us from council and the mayor. Pelican Days is the first weekend in July. Again, there's an open invitation for all council. Drug and alcohol free. Again, I'll be meeting with Councillor Hoffman in the Geopark, hopefully before I leave for Victoria, to talk to the Geopark and let them know that they haven't confirmed yet. They're going to draw out their plans to make sure, but they thought they'd be interested as well in the geo-interpretive trader being available if it can be. We'll be trying to set up more council-to-council meetings with West Smo and Soto, and obviously McLeod Lake after we meet with them. But we are reaching out right now to our museum in regards to the mask that's being housed at our community center at this point. There was some questions from Soto's side that they thought there was some grant money out there to apply for and get it housed in a proper container in the right humidity and all that, so we don't have any decaying of the mask. And then there was talk about replicas being done, and I know staff has reached out to the museum. We're just getting that information back now. But that is one discussion that we'll have to follow up from the previous mayor and council. So we're working on it today, but I just want to inform council about that because it'll be in the minutes about the mask. They are building a culture center there. It had, I'm not sure if it doubled or tripled in price. I want to say it doubled, tripled in price from when they first had it priced before COVID. There'll be a grand opening of that too in December, November, December, and again, all of council will be invited. All right, question and answer period. Mr. Orwell? Okay, thank you. Resolution to closed. Councilor Norbert.
Thank you. That the April 17th, 2023 regular council meeting be closed to the public according to subsection 91C and J of the Community Charter to permit discussion about labor relations or other employee relations and information that is prohibited or information that if it were presented in a document would be prohibited from disclosure under section 21 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act.
Seconder. Councilor Dussault. All in favor? Carried. 5-minute recess.